Star Wars Rogue Squadron is a 1998 arcade flight sim developed by Factor 5 and LucasArts for the Nintendo 64. It is the first of a Rogue Squadron trilogy made exclusively for Nintendo. It consists of 16 levels and 3 bonus levels that can be experienced with a host of different Star Wars aircraft, some of which, like the Millennium Falcon, can be unlocked for use in already completed levels. Rogue Squadron is one of the flagship franchises of the once mighty LucasArts, now known only as Lucasfilm Games. Rogue Squadron harkens back to a day when flight sims, vehicular combat, and Star Wars games in general were king. Let's take a look at this first entry into the trilogy and see if it still holds up today. The game follows the exploits of Luke Skywalker's famous Rogue Squadron as it spins off from the main films. You take command of Luke himself, granted only in a cockpit, as you fly around and fight the Empire in a story that fills in the gaps between the original Star Wars trilogy, and even fast forwards to end with the final mission that occurs after the destruction of the second Death Star. Unfortunately, all of this was likely decanonized when Disney acquired Star Wars, but hey, at least we got Rise of Skywalker. Oh god. The gameplay can be called an arcade flight sim. Your piloting skills will be tested, but it's nothing like Ace Combat or anything remotely realistic, and frankly, that's a good thing. It's accessible for general audiences, while the medal system ranks your performance, and going for gold will really test your piloting skills. This is the game's stand-in for a difficulty setting. There's only one difficulty, in classic arcade fashion, but the medals give you a reason to replay stages, use better strategies, and try out the unlocked vessels like the Millennium Falcon to gain an advantage. Okay, so what isn't great about Rogue Squadron? This may seem like a low blow, but I have to say the graphics on the individual characters are deplorable. The ships look fine, and so does almost anything else, but the stormtroopers and rebel pilots look distinctly like mobile scraps of paper. This wouldn't be so bad, but the game makes no effort to hide these terrible animations, and you have to take on ground troops fairly frequently. Otherwise, the graphics of the old N64 perform admirably, except along the stage's edges, but for the most part, it's fine. Now, what does work well for Rogue Squadron? Well, nearly everything other than the graphics. The sounds are amazing, with blasters flying around and that iconic whine of the TIE fighters racing overhead. The voice actors also do their job, and the sound comes together to immerse you in the Star Wars universe. Flying these ships is a delight for the fans. Oh, and the classic yellow Naboo starfighter even makes an appearance as a not-so-secret ship. The N1 has been given new life after being included in The Mandalorian, and it is an absolute beast in Rogue Squadron. The N1 is fast and rapid-firing, while the Falcon is slow, but comes with an auto-turret. Or maybe that's Chewie on the turret, but the point is that each of the game's dozen or so vehicles feel distinct, making replaying old levels with new ships a blast. Think of how Lord of the Rings: Return of the King is applauded for how you can replay the campaign with different characters, totally changing up the gameplay and making you feel powerful, playing through a stage meant for the hobbits with Aragorn or Gandalf. Similarly, Rogue Squadron lets you use the N1 or prototype V-Wing on early levels to demolish the Imperial forces. Sound, combat, and replayability all earn high marks in Rogue Squadron. This is the OG Star Wars flight sim. Battle for Naboo, Star Wars Clone Wars, even the flight components of Star Wars Battlefront can all trace their roots back to Rogue Squadron. So in conclusion, whether you want to experience the Battle of Hoth or take part in the legendary trench run of the Death Star, you will be hard-pressed to find a more authentically Star Wars game than Rogue Squadron.
It's all right, Luke. You held them off long enough. We evacuated everyone just in time, thanks to Captain Solo and Chewbacca. That was never my favorite building anyway.